And Wendy, would you do roll call, please? Wendy, are you there? I can't hear Wendy. I'm not sure if she's struggling with the mute feature this week. Councilmember Amsbury?
Here.
Councilmember Huff? Not yet. Councilmember Heller?
Here.
Councilmember Blankenship?
Here.
Iverson? I think you're on mute, Joy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
Todd, do you see if Councilmember Huff is signed in?
Brenda, can you hear me now?
Oh, yep, I hear you. I hear you, Councilmember Huff. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, he's signed in.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, we are all here. Thank you for joining us. There are no presentations this evening, no executive session this evening, no public hearing. Mayor, we've had a very busy couple of weeks, a lot of things happening. The county was able to get us into phase 2. Their variance application was approved last week, so we were very happy about that. Today, we heard from Governor Inslee that he is opening up houses of spiritual worship. The faith community can resume having in-person services or outdoor services and in-home services, like some people call them cell groups or small group gathering. There is guidance that he has provided with regard to that. At this time, they can have up to 50 people or 25% capacity of their building. And so we're glad to see that happening. We've tried to get the word out to our local churches, make sure they have the guidance on how to host those services and what they need to do for their staff and so on to prepare for that. So things are moving slowly but surely, and we're grateful for that. From a staff side, everybody here working. It's been a very busy time, a lot going on. And we're very grateful. Memorial Day was a nice weekend for most people. We were very happy that the cemetery was ready to go. We had a lot of good feedback from the community on that. And everyone continues to keep systems running. So we're very grateful for all that's happening right now. At this time, I would invite, do we have any public comment? And Todd, you can let me know if anyone has their hand raised or wants to be heard.
Yeah, I don't see anybody doing anything right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Tab A, the minutes from our previous meeting. And that meeting was on May the 13th. Did we have any questions, comments, edits, or we'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? All in favor of the motion on the table say aye.
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 Any opposed by the same sign? It's approved. Thank you. Tab B, we have the payable for May 1st through the 15th. Many thanks to Lindsay, who keeps everything moving in that area of the financial operations, and she provided the check register for everybody. Do you have any questions, comments, or to approve the vouchers?
I'll make a motion. We approve the vouchers.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? All in favor of the motion on the table say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? And the motion is approved. Thank you. So tab C is our COVID expenditures. So again, this is a report of the expenditures to date. I think this was May 21. It shows everything that's been charged off in the COVID-19 lines in our accounting system. And so right now our total expenditures, and this includes everything from salaries, supplies, benefits, communications, professional services, anything that's related. Total is there at the end of page 5 is $375,095.08. Now, mind you, this includes, like I said, salaries and everything. Everything is being charged to COVID-19 at this point because in an emergency operation, we are functioning to respond to the emergency. So everything is being charged off to COVID-19. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I think that I just kind of wanted to add that we have already at the county been getting some feedback from FEMA. I didn't know if you guys have started any talks with FEMA yet on some of this, because how I understand it is only overtime is something that is going to be able to be charged. So I just don't want the council to be under the impression that this is all going to be reimbursable, because I'm not sure that a lot of this will be.
Right. No, and thank you for that. You're absolutely right that we may not get reimbursed for all of this. But right now we're charging it off because that is our function, is to respond to the emergency. And Chief Blair has been in contact and is the person who in our org chart is responsible to communicate with regard to this, and he will be working with me to submit for reimbursement in the different areas. And yes, he has been on several different webinars so far where they're trying to explain, and the rules are still sort of changing back and forth, as you probably know. So we are still waiting for clarification on everything from FEMA. And at this time, we continue to charge everything off there. And then when it's time, we will submit what is allowable, or we'll submit it all and let them deny what they don't want to cover.
Okay.
But you're right. We are not anticipating that we will get 100% of this money back. But we definitely want to show everything that we're doing operationally right now is to respond to and manage this emergency. So that's why we're doing it. And we have, like, we're doing that. We've gotten guidance on this as well, to keep the books this way and to charge things off this way. And that way, when it is time, we have everything in its proper place so that we can submit for what will be allowed. But you, because that's a very good point.
Okay.
The total looks kind of big, I'm sure. Any other questions about the COVID-19 expenditures to date? Okay. Thank
Joy,
you.
you're muted.
Oh, was Joy trying to ask a
Joy's trying to
question?
talk. Yeah.
How does that? I didn't touch it. It just mutes itself. Maybe it mutes when someone else is talking. Anyway, we're only going to get a percentage of it no matter what, correct? We're not going to get the whole amount.
My understanding is that the way FEMA responds and reimburses is at a percentage. And originally what we were told, or the rules when we all went into this, or past practice has been a 75% coverage. There are some things taking place at the federal level, and it could be that we may get 90% of what's allowable. Again, I don't believe they finalized that at this point either. And
They have,
Chief is, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So initially it happened at 75%, and then the federal government withholds 25%. At that time, they said that the state would come back if they did reimburse. They would pick up 12.5% back to the agency asking for it, so it would be 87.5%. And it could change to go to 90% if all the FEMA reimbursable expenses exceed $1.1 billion and it goes to 90%. So those are all unknowns until all the expenses are in. And to address the FEMA one, I've been dealing with FEMA since we enacted this in March on a weekly basis. And the overtime thing that's a whole different thing. That's incorrect. So the overtime thing, that's for supplemental grants that are currently going on now and not reimbursement in the recovery phase, because no one is in recovery phase in the state because we're only in phase 2.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of information coming about this. And as we've heard time and again, we've never been here before and everyone's trying to figure it out as we go, I think. So we will pay close attention. Like I said, Chief is engaged weekly on those webinars and getting that information. I am getting information as well. So we are doing our very best to make sure that the city will be able to get reimbursed for as much as possible. We're trying to make sure that we have all of our paperwork and documentation in place for that. So any other questions? And thank you, Chief, for that. Okay, tab D, our memo from Chris Coker. Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
The only thing I would add is last meeting, we brought up an issue related to donating that car to the, it was the chaplain group.
Yeah, the State Patrol Chaplain Association.
Is that entity is not technically affiliated with the State Patrol. So I'm not comfortable advising the city that they can donate that.
Okay.
That was the only other thing that I think I can remember.
Okay. So, memory serves, last meeting we did approve to surplus it. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can surplus it. I just don't think we can donate it.
Okay. So at this point, we would have to find out the market value of the car and offer it to them at market value. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But I think we already had the approval for that, for the surplus or whatever. Okay.
We don't have to do market value. We can go to auction with it.
Right.
Okay.
It just needs to be a present, you know.
We just can't give it to them.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, in that council had approved the surplus of the vehicle. If there aren't any opposition, if there's no opposition to it, then we'll proceed with the surplus. Okay. Hearing none, we'll proceed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Chris? Anyone have any questions? On his report. Okay. Moving on to tab E, we have staff reports from the Finance and Administration, Public Works, from the wastewater treatment plant. Not sure. I thought Light and Power had one, but I'm not seeing it. Pretty much standard operation. Did anyone have any questions about anything?
Hey, Todd, this is Bryson. Hey, I was curious. Do you know when the grounds crew is going to get a chance to work out at Summit Place?
What part of Summit Place are you talking about?
The area that the city mainly maintains, like around the retention pond and then along Summit Road there.
Yeah, it's scheduled on Steve's. Steve has it scheduled. We ran into a water leak today. We've ran into actually 3 water leaks the last couple days, and we've been fixing water leaks. So once we get our water leak stuff caught up, we will be heading out to that area. So.
Oh, there you go. Now we can hear you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I know. I was saying over the long weekend, I'm sure it was on the agenda. It was just getting to now where it's pretty tall, especially closer to that retention pond and the tracks.
Yep. Yeah, we're on our way out Summit Road here next, so we'll be working our way out that way. And either by the end of this week or next week, we'll have that all mowed out there.
Okay. Oh, and then the other thing I was going to ask you, did we ever find out from Larry or the people, the contractors with Dollar General, if they're going to be putting a barricade or a fence or anything around that retention pond?
We are waiting until the retention pond's actually finished, so we know what
Okay.
exactly we're looking at there. But yeah, Larry, I know up along the sidewalk is going to require like a handrail through there, so people can't go off the sidewalk into the retention pond. But I think we're also
Okay.
waiting on the other part for them to actually finish it, so we can have a punch list of what to do with it.
And part of that, they're going to finish rocking it, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of plantings. Those storm ponds are going to probably raise up a foot or so with material,
Okay.
and then they're going to be sloped and with plantings for the stormwater filtration.
Okay. Yeah, the vets hall was curious if they were going to go all the way around with the rock, and I wasn't sure if they were doing that or not.
No, they got a pretty extensive landscaping part for the 2 storm ponds.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
And then we did want to just highlight with Kevin on the chemicals. And I'm sure you read it in the report, but we don't have any concerns about the supply or being able to access those chemicals for the wastewater treatment plant. So I appreciate the question and was very glad he did the research on that for us to make sure we were all set. So thank you. Moving on to tab F, our COVID-19 update. And this is more, like I mentioned earlier, we are officially in phase 2 as a county. The governor has now opened up places of worship for up to 50 people. We know that schools are closed still for the remainder of this year. And I haven't heard about what's going to happen in the fall yet. That'll be kind of our next thing. We'll be looking toward what's going to be happening down the road for students because we're almost into June already and the summer will go by us very quickly. We're also going to be interested to see what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks around the county now that we've opened up a bit more. Memorial Day traffic was pretty heavy. So we'll see how the county fares over the next couple of weeks. We've had notification from several of the areas around like the Grays Harbor Fair is canceled, Lake Fair is canceled, and things that normally happen in the summer are canceled. I have had a request from the Civic Renewal Council with regard to some activities that they want to try this summer. And I'm looking through those to see what we might be able to accommodate. And I'm going to put that on our next agenda council to see. Just got that email within the last couple of days. So I will share that with you all. And we'll see if there's anything that we can do here in our city that might provide some activities for people throughout the summer. And then with regard to city staff, again, everyone is back to work time. Light and Power was the last crew that we were able to bring back 100% because we wanted to make the right accommodations in the office for them. The vehicle situation, we're trying to make sure that people are not riding together in vehicles. So we're looking at some options there. But for now, we feel like we have the right safety measures in place. City Hall continues to be closed to the public. And now that new construction can begin again with phase 2. So we are going to look at having some meeting options for people that need to come in with building permits and have plan review and things like that. So, but we're going to be diverting all of that traffic directly to the building department and working on that process to ensure that we don't have people traipsing through City Hall and engaging with or talking with any more than they need to, the number of people that they need to talk to. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Later on the agenda, coming up here, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus relief funds that we are going to receive. So I'll leave that for that discussion. And as far as I know, yet, and maybe I'm just missing it, but I haven't seen that they've opened. But I think our restaurants are doing the limited seating that they're allowed to do so that they can have some dine-in and take, to go and delivery and things like that. Of course, our coffee stands were able to stay open. Library is not able to open until we get into phase 3, and they are working on their reopening guidance and process that they're going to be following, because they have the key card process. I forget what it's called, something plus, library plus or something. So they're kind of working through that whole system and how that's going to work when they reopen. We have worked with them from a janitorial standpoint to ensure then that the facility is being cleaned, and it will be cleaned according to CDC guidances with regard to CDC approved cleansers and disinfectants and things like that. So their plan, and as soon as we get into phase 3, they will let us know how they're going to roll out their reopening and get back to serving the community from the library rather than just online. Our Dollar General store opened over the past weekend, so we have another provider in town of essential services and products, and
Brenda, you went off.
Wendy, can we hear you? Are you there? I can't hear her. Okay. Sorry. I still can't hear Wendy. All right. So hearing no questions, we're going to move on to tab G, which is a video surveillance policy. And this is a policy that we have put together with regard to the cameras that we are preparing to hang up in town in different areas and around city facilities for security purposes. And I don't know, Todd, if you want to share more information about the cameras themselves or any more about this policy.
No, this policy went to city staff, and we looked it over, made corrections. Our attorney reviewed it, and this is just for you guys to see what our city policy is on surveillance. So.
Does any council member have any questions?
I have a question on how many cameras there's planning on being, and if it's going to be limited to just county property. Are we talking sidewalks, permanent locations?
I don't know if Todd, if you want to speak to that or not, but the initial, I'll start and then he can add in. So the initial thought behind this was driven by the idea of having a camera at least at each of the entrances and exits to the city. The idea being that we would be able to see every vehicle that comes and goes in and out of the city, so that when something happens, we can very quickly trace who's been here and track down potential people or whatever. Then we also talked about some security areas, particularly around the transit station. We've had a lot of vandalism over there with the restrooms and so on. So we thought having security on that building would be helpful. And then there's other areas around City Hall to make sure that city facilities are secured. And then we've been talking internally with staff about other areas with regard to security for the city. The idea is that these cameras will be permanent fixtures. They're not floating around, moving around. We're not chasing problems. We're putting them in areas that will help us basically monitor certain, like I said, the entrance and exits to the city, and certain areas that we want to make sure that we can prevent damage or find out who's causing damage if and when it happens to city facilities and property. We also have one posted inside of City Hall that monitors the front counter. So when we are open to public access again, we can, and it only sees the front counter. It's not on staff. It's not monitoring staff activity. It's just that activity at the counter where people are paying, handling cash, credit cards, so on. And if somebody was going to come in and sort of, hold up City Hall, that's where it would happen. So we have the cameras situated there. There's also one in the hallway of City Hall, so we can see who comes and goes down the hallway at City Hall. Todd, I'm not sure if you have other areas. I think we talked about the wastewater treatment plant area and something else.
So yeah, we have a plan to have cameras at all of our critical infrastructure areas, which is the wells, the reservoir, our substations, our treatment plant, entrances and exits of town. In total, we have it broke up into phases right now. I think phase one, we have like 12 or 15 cameras that we're looking at purchasing eventually. And then phase two will be another, probably 6 to 10 cameras, depending on what we can cover on the cameras. So we wanted to get the policy up first, so we have a policy so we can actually start monitoring them and be able to set our guidelines on them for the like the recording length and how long we keep them and stuff. So.
I have a
Okay, do we have-
question, Todd. Oh. I have a question, Todd. Are you considering putting one at the at 108 where it comes into McCleary?
Which one? Which side?
Well, down here on Summit Road where 108 comes into McCleary, 108 and Summit Road.
Okay, yeah, we plan on having, I believe, 3 of them at that intersection. We're gonna have 3 of them at the intersection where 108 and Simpson meet at on the other exit. We have, I think, 3 up on 3rd Street, or we'll plan on having 3 up on 3rd and Moxie-Halas area. And we're gonna have some out on Summit Road where the county line and and city properties meet, or the city lines meet.
So I guess my concern with some of the locations, because of the camera, just saying that it's not necessarily going to be pointed at a house or something like that. I guess that's kind of who comes in. I personally wouldn't want the city to have 3 cameras all pointing towards my, yard or, things like that. And I understand that it's considered, that it's out in the open, but it's different if you see someone outside than having 24-hour surveillance right there. So I guess that's where my concern lies, is that we're not going to be 24/7 recording where you can see someone's full property, or they not be able to enjoy their property because of that.
No, we can't point it at houses because that is illegal. Everything's going to be pointed on the roadways at vehicles traveling in and out.
Okay, I think it was someone in the policy that kind of said it, it was just a little confusing, I think, that section. It was where
Oh, is it where it says video surveillance and monitoring of public area dwellings and businesses in the city?
It's number 8. It says camera positions and views of residential housing shall be limited. Any view given to housing will be no greater than what is available with unaided vision. Furthermore, the residential housing facility must not violate the standard of reasonable expectation of privacy. And so to me, that sounded like it could be pointed at someone's front yard because that's visible to people. And so I just wanted to make that clear. I don't want to be watching someone's, property. So.
Right, and we're not pointing at, the intent is not to point at any property, and we are not actually monitoring these. So it's not like where we have somebody watching cameras constantly. It's going to be if something happens, we can say, okay, well, what vehicle drove through here at 10 o'clock at night, and you can look at it and say, okay, it was a truck that drove through McCleary at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, I guess I would just want that to be very clear in the policy that is only going to be used for those purposes, because I don't know if it was clear that that's only going to be used for reviewing some type of, criminal activity or something like that. Again, I just clear that is what we're doing and not have it be ambiguous, because I think you could read it multiple ways.
Chris, do you want to take a look at that and see if there's language that we can tighten up to ensure? I mean, we know in talking with Chief, like legally, we can't point this at people's homes. we can't say, oh, we think there's a problem there, we're going to put a camera up and see what's going on. Like, that's not an allowable use, and it's not our intent at all either. I think what this was referring to was if you have a camera hanging at a stop sign and it's catching the corner of someone's roof, like, that's gonna, there's only so far you can zoom and whatever. But maybe Chris, if you could take a look at it, maybe tighten up some of the language to ensure, or add something that is very specific about the intent of the security and the surveillance.
Well, if we, so, I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, depending on, I don't know where these cameras are going to be. If they catch the corner of a house, I mean, I don't think that's something we can't do. I don't think that's not our intent. Go to the top of the document, Todd, can you? Please. So purposes, pose government use to see surveillance over electronic policy the non-court ordered use of video surveillance in public places and to enhance public safety and security in a manner consistent with accepted rights of privacy. The scope talks about our intent to deter crime by strategic placement. What do we want more specific than that? Like our intent is not to put this on public homes? Or what are you guys thinking?
I guess I'm wanting to ensure that people aren't going to be watching this all the time. The only time that they're going to use this is if there's a reason to look at the video, I think is more, because monitoring means real-time viewing or viewing footage. So I understand that. I don't want there to be I'm not saying that this is what you guys are trying to do, but if a policy is ambiguous, I don't want it to be used for that in the future by people, I guess, is what I'm looking at. Is I do want it to just be for safety purposes, and it's not just going to be viewed to be viewed.
But what if we had a situation where somebody was a recurring break-in at the bathrooms or something at the transit station? Would we want to limit? And let's say that the chief said, you know what, this happens between 1 and 3 every Friday night. We want to prevent him from having a guy monitor that?
I guess if it was only the police department viewing it, I think then that could be different.
I understand the desire to tighten things up, but we also have to be careful we don't tighten them so much that we defeat the purpose of putting these cameras up. Is this standard language for the policies in other cities, Chris?
Yeah, it's consistent with other cities. I think we made some changes, but yeah, it's pretty consistent. Yeah. Hey, could you guys hold on? Hold on 2 seconds.
I'm not sure if you were still here.
Yeah, I'm on a meeting. Sorry. That's okay.
No, that helps. Thank you for showing that the duty.
Sorry about that. I had a neighbor bring me king crab legs, so I'm glad I answered the door.
I'll be over in about half an hour.
20 minutes.
So sorry about that.
Would be speeding, Joyce.
Janet, is that language in that responsibility section? Is that?
Yeah, I think that makes it clear. And again, I think I just didn't know what the whole scope of the project was, so that's why I just wanted it to be clear that they are on facilities, that's what they're being used for, and not moving around to different areas and things like that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, if you see anything else, let me know. But I'm just, these things, I get it. I mean, it's, I get it. I get your concerns.
And we're actually going to place a link on one of them that's monitoring the intersection out here, so people could actually watch it on the website if they wanted to. So,
for traffic purposes, or for what purpose?
just entertainment value.
Everybody running that stop sign.
No collateral private viewing. I mean, there wouldn't be any, there's no houses or anything in there, correct?
No, it's looking at the intersection.
It's all commercial.
Okay.
We want everyone to see the people going, "You don't have to stop."
Yeah, exactly.
Or, I have the right of way. Please don't hit me.
Yeah, that was me the other day. I almost got creamed in there. All right. Any other questions on the video surveillance policy? Okay. Moving on to tab H, the coronavirus relief funds that are coming from they're coming from the federal government. They're being filtered through, I guess we don't want to say it's not being laundered, it's being filtered through the state government. The state received an allocation of funding, and Governor Inslee appropriated $300 million of that to go out to cities and counties. The city of McCleary will be receiving, I believe it's 53,700 or something like that. And so we have the information here. I forwarded to council, or put in the packet, the whole bit of information that we got from the Department of Commerce, I think it is. And there are very set rules in here on how the money can be utilized. It must be utilized to respond to COVID-19. It must be utilized within a certain period of time. I believe it's March 1 through December 31 of this year, or sorry, March 1 through October 31 of this year. And we have until November 15th of this year to submit for reimbursement. And it is their plan, or their anticipated hope, that all funds will be distributed no later than December 31. Now, that doesn't mean if we submit something now, we're not going to get paid till December. It just means they want to have it all wrapped up by then. My understanding is that if we submit something even now, that there's a process, we would see the refund for anything that's approved and eligible within a few days. So I included that whole packet for you. And I know that last time we were together, there was some information brought forward and some expressed request, I guess, to talk about the money and how it might be utilized outside of what the city is spending. And I think more specifically, one of the comments was around what could we do for local businesses. So I did want to have that conversation with you all tonight. One of the items that it covers is public safety. So we know that if we were to reimburse, for example, all of our police department expenditures, including their salaries and so on, all payroll expenses associated with public safety would be fully covered under this. Chief, as I said, he's working on a lot of this with FEMA and so on, and is aware that we want to look at what we put through here versus what we put through FEMA, et cetera, because we know that this will cover 100% of what's allowed. FEMA may only cover a certain percentage, and we're not exactly sure what's going to be allowed yet. I don't think that's been finalized. So there's some of that to be sort of filtered out and figured out. But we wanted to hear from council if you had some thoughts around where you would like to see the money utilized or spent beyond we already have legitimate expenses. We could probably submit a reimbursement request for that full amount tomorrow in what we've already spent on public safety and so on. But we want to hear from you all if you had ideas. So I'm going to open the floor if anyone has something that they want to offer.
Can we use part of it how's our food bank doing? Is this something we could help our food bank with part of it?
I'm not positive about that. It mentions businesses. Gosh, I don't know.
I'm just thinking our food bank is helping families that are struggling and don't have enough food. I know that they don't look at income or anything like that. They just take all comers. But and I don't know how our food bank is doing. They may be fine. I'm not certain. But I think that it would be nice to know if they're meeting the needs of the community or if they're running out.
Yeah, Joy, I talked to Larry this last opening and asked him how he was doing. I also further gave him a list of different grants that were available through FEMA for those particular type services. Larry indicated to me that the only thing he would need would be a large freezer that would help him to freeze his stores. His problem is that he needed phase 3 power out to where he's at, and he didn't know if that could be done. So I believe food banks and so forth, they have a separate pool of money that they can draw from for those type of deals. But from what I gathered from Larry, that the food bank is doing quite well.
Good. I'm glad you talked to Larry. So are you talking about there in the park? That's building is where they want to put the freezer?
Correct.
So Todd, is that someplace that could get 3-phase if they could get a freezer?
It's possible, but we have better options for 3-phase power if they needed it. If they want to, they can. I'll go talk to Larry and find out what they're thinking about.
Yeah, because 3-phase, that's a lot of power. That's what we used to run the MRI and CT scanner with. That must be some freezer.
No, that's just 240 volts. It's nothing.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
the way the motor runs. It just changes it from the start up on the motor, so it's not a big deal.
Okay. But maybe that's something, I don't know. I don't know whether this money is already earmarked for, but I really think that it's important to make sure our food bank has what they need to help the people in the community.
There is one section in here that mentions expenses for food delivery to residents, including, for example, senior citizens and other vulnerable populations. So I don't know. I mean, that could be a tough one. But we could take a look at it and see. As Todd said, we can talk to him, and like Ben mentioned, he did share with Larry some potential grant options that the food bank can apply for. Since the food bank isn't technically part of the city, we're not able to apply for those on behalf of them. Like, they have to do that. So,
Okay.
And the other aspect of this too is anytime somebody's got to keep record of where this stuff is going. And I know some of these applications can be quite lengthy. So it's just my belief, the simpler, the better. I don't know, Chief, you might have other feelings towards that, but I'm not the one doing the paperwork. So I'll leave that up to you.
I had a question on, I didn't know, would our treasurer not normally be the person doing a federal grant like this? I just didn't know if that was normal, because in our emergency plans, it all said that the treasurer was doing these type of things. So I guess that was one of my questions, for who was going to be doing, I guess, all the money stuff.
so in our emergency operation, our clerk treasurer, Wendy, is the finance, like, she's logistics director for finance. But that person does all the accounting and allocations and all that, but the submissions for reimbursement is at the commander level. I don't know if that makes sense. So, I don't know if Chief, if you can explain it better. I can't hear him and I can't see him on the screen.
No, I just know federal grants require a lot of things, and so I just wanted to make sure that we did have that finance person involved, because we don't want problems with a federal grant, because if we have one problem with a federal grant, we're not eligible for other federal grants. So
Yes, our 3rd Street project was a really good practice for that.
yeah,
That was a big
they
deal.
require a lot more work than other grants.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas that you want to bring forward with regard to the CARES money and what to do with it other than expenses that we are incurring as a city? I'll share an idea that we had, and it was Councilmember had stopped by the other day and we were chatting about some things that he had seen on, I don't know if it was social media or where, but like videos of police officers that were pulling people over and telling them that it was illegal to be out on a summer day without an ice cream, and they were giving them free ice cream cone coupons and things like that.
Hey, I'm all for that.
So a thought that I had after that conversation, in a way that we might be able to support local businesses would be if we were to purchase from each local business either gift cards or something that then our police department could utilize in ways like that to do community engagement and so on. And that way we would be making a purchase from all of our local businesses to support them, and also enabling our police department to have a resource to work with on community engagement. So that was one idea that we had, because it's hard to, with $53,000, it's hard to say, well, we're going to take applications and give out grants. I mean, it's not a lot of money when you think about it. And I don't know that we want to go down the road of trying to pick and choose who gets what and how much and so on. But we definitely wanted to have the conversation and give room for it if people had ideas along those lines.
Before you submit anything, are we going to get like a report on what you are going to go out for these, or like a listing of what we are being reimbursed for?
It will be shown, like once we submit for reimbursements and have money come back in, it will be shown in our accounting. We'll be allocating the reimbursements and where it came back to, like against what line or whatever. And I don't know if Chief can respond or not, but I don't know how it works as far as once we get ready to submit our claim. I mean, I think we just submit everything that's legitimate and see what we get back. With regard to the CARES money, I think if we wanted to do something like what I just spoke about, I would want to have council's feedback on that. But I think otherwise it's left to the emergency operations team to file those reimbursements in the best way that we see based on all of our expenses.
Brenda, this is Bryson.
Yes.
I know you mentioned emergency response. Did Paul not say anything about maybe something the fire department might need for COVID response?
So far, no. The one thing that we talked about that the fire department could use in a situation like this is a smaller vehicle to respond. Like if the fire department had a small like fire pickup rather than having to roll the big truck every time. I don't know how realistic that is, but we did talk about that because right now you have to disinfect everything and clean everything. And when they're going to a non-emergent call, it would be nice to respond in a smaller vehicle. But as far as like,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I would say, but with regard to like PPE and supplies and so on, they have been fine and have what they need.
And that stuff we're going to get reimbursed for because we already expended it. So this is stuff that we've already expended, not stuff that we want to buy to expend.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, feedback? So the other item that we need with regard to this CARES money is we are looking for council to approve the signature of the contract. We actually have to sign a contract with the state in order to receive the funds. And in talking with the governor's office and in looking at the emergency operations chart, the signer on the contract should be chief. And so we're looking, asking if council would entertain or I'd entertain a motion to approve us signing the contract in order to receive the funds.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract so that we can receive the funds.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? And you can see there on your screen, if you're looking, that's the signature page where chief will sign it. All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
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 Any opposed by the same sign? All right, the motion is approved. Thank you. Okay, tab I, Sanctuary City. And I'd like to give the floor to Councilman Blankenship, who shared this with me, and we put it on the agenda, and just let you introduce it if you'd like to, Councilman Blankenship, and then we'll have conversation.
Yeah, I'll let, I'm gonna have Councilmember Huff respond first, and then I'll take it.
Okay. Okay. The floor is
So
yours.
the idea, okay, so I know people get nervous with the term sanctuary city, and I saw the idea Atwater, California was floating in regards to being able to protect their businesses that they have in the community, which got me thinking about McCleary. And if you look at Grace Harbor County, we had 13, I think 14 tops confirmed COVID cases and 0 deaths. And given our population, I thought that was a relatively low number considering the population of the county. In talking with our business owners in regards to the mandatory shutdown put in by the governor's office, they struggled. It was a real situation. They weren't sure if they were going to be able to keep going and pull through to where they are now. I know El Carbone and Rain Country, they both closed up for a week or two shortly after the shutdown, and then they went to just only curbside orders for limited hours on a few days a week. My fear is that if we go backwards as a state, as we go into fall and winter, that these businesses that are in our town, they're not going to survive. That's what I'm worried about. And the issue that came out is, yeah, their employees were on unemployment, but they still had bills to pay. They still had vendors to pay. They still had a mortgage to pay. And those bills didn't go away. And a lot of businesses, from experience, people either dump in their whole life savings or they tie it to their homes in order to pursue their investment. And I think that it doesn't change anything as far as the state level goes. I mean, we're just saying with the sanctuary city, as McCleary is not going to tattle on a business to the state that they're running their business. The business will still have the full freedom to operate with the safety measures outlined by CDC and Department of Health. The city obviously doesn't regulate the business license. That's between the county and the state, depending on the business. But I think it should be, considering our situation here, more, I guess for the lack of a better word, lax as far as what the businesses can and can't do. In regards to a county, for example, like King County, where they really had a situation up there. But that's my standpoint on it. I just see it as this is something that can give our businesses a little peace of mind and try and help them through this process where we don't lose them on the account that we've already lost Subway as it stands.
Okay, you done there, Bryson?
I am, yeah.
Okay, just so everybody knows, like Bryson said, that this does not change anything that the state has put forth. It's being more transparent to our businesses here locally as far as what the city's response is. And I prepared my talking points regarding this sanctuary resolution. So originally it was proposed, I proposed a mayor proclamation to the mayor, similar to the one the city of Selah, Washington, and recently you've probably heard the city of Kelso had introduced, denouncing Inslee's Stay Home, Stay Healthy proclamation. After discussing this approach with Councilmember Huff, I felt my approach was a little unfair of a request to make to the mayor and drop that proposal altogether. Now, in my discussion with Councilmember Huff, who more or less co-sponsored this resolution, had advised me of an article that he had read regarding another city that, as he mentioned earlier, Atwater, California, that move forward on a resolution declaring a sanctuary city for all businesses. So I had reached out to the mayor of Atwater and requested a copy of their resolution, which she gladly sent me via email. I took that resolution and morphed it with the mayor proclamation that I had done up earlier. And so that gave birth to the resolution that you have in front of you. This resolution just is merely a symbolic document that places businesses within McCleary as essential. This also reassures our business owners that the city resources would not be in any way used to assist and or enforce Governor Inslee's restrictions placed on our small businesses. It is evident that the governor's actions alone demonstrates his belief of ruling this state and not governing our state. Big difference. Governor Inslee's assertion, his four-phase approach to reopening, is based on science and data. Well, we all know that the science has been flawed since the onset of the virus outbreak. Models have predicted doom and gloom from the onset, falsely scaring folks into staying at home. Some of you are saying that these models are only as good as the data is being inputted. Well, let's look at the data then. I took the opportunity to go on to Washington Health Department's website. I pulled up the stats for Grays Harbor County. Grays Harbor County has a population of approximately 75,000. They had 16 confirmed COVID-19 cases as of May 23rd. 0 deaths. Thurston County, 286,419 population, 127 confirmed COVID-19 cases, 1 death. Mason County population, 65,507, 34 confirmed COVID-19 cases, 1 death. Pacific County population, 22,036, 9 confirmed COVID-19 cases with 1 death. With 0 deaths. The reason I took these counties are the 4 surrounding counties to Grays Harbor. I totaled the population of all 5 counties came up to 480,691 with a total of 3 COVID-19 deaths. That equated to a 0.00062% of you dying from COVID-19 in 5 counties. The state population is 6,724,540, 1,061 deaths, which equated to a 0.015% dying from COVID-19. I went further and took the 2018 and 2019 flu deaths in Washington state. There were 230 deaths, which equated to a 0.0034% dying from the flu, and the flu has a vaccine. My point here with these stats are that you have twice the likelihood of dying from seasonal flu than you do from COVID-19, as far as the data shows. So then I went further and looked at the 4 stages to emergency management. Those stages are mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. I asked, why is McCleary and Grays Harbor County only at stage 2? We did our part to flatten the curve. With no new cases for over a month, we should be in our recovery stage. Again, McCleary's had 0 cases and 0 deaths. Grays Harbor has had 16 cases and 0 deaths. So RCW 3852 talks about emergency management and what a jurisdiction is and how it works. Washington Department of Health put out their instructions for applying for a phase 2 variance. Asked if the city of McCleary could apply for a variance. The response back was informing us that there was no procedure in place for cities to request a variance. We had to apply through our local ELC, through the county. Well, RCW 3852 clearly states otherwise. Furthermore, jurisdictions are unable to apply for stage 3 variance as the decision on when and how have not been determined yet by the state. The state is not allowing our city to recover even when the data dictates otherwise. I was elected into office in part to protect and defend the rights of all McCleary residents and businesses during these times of emergencies. I asked you, what authority does Governor Inslee have to declare businesses essential or non-essential? What authority does Governor Inslee have to close houses of worship, violating our First Amendment rights? What authority allows him to deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, depriving us of our 14th Amendment right to process? Not to mention the city's economic losses. When I say economic losses, I'm talking about the tax revenue, utility revenues, and not to mention the Big Bear Festival that's held every year. Business revenue, such as the Rain Country, Al Qurbaan, the service stations, and various other small businesses, has suffered through the state's denial of us allowing to move into the recovery phase. So with that being said, I hope that each of you vote in favor of this resolution, sending a clear message to the governor's office that this heavy-handed type of strong arming, which isn't supported by data, needs to stop. And that is the purpose of this resolution. I'm here to protect, again, the residents and the businesses that I was elected to protect, and I hope you will do the same.
So I guess a comment that I would like to add to this is I think something else that just got added yesterday was a new response from Governor Inslee, now citing more businesses. And so my only worry, I do not agree. I agree with everything that you said, Ben, about my personal beliefs on this whole process. But I also don't want businesses to think that we are somehow telling them that it's okay to open and that there isn't going to be any penalties, because Elle and I can fine them up to $10,000 for this, and that could be equally crippling for some of these businesses. So I guess that's just what I want to make sure is clear, is that if this were to go in, that doesn't mean that there's not still liability on the business, that they still have to follow their regulations and licensing duties, because again, one $10,000 fine could devastate their business.
I read the same thing that Jenna just discussed, and I have that same concern that if a business read this, they would be under the impression that, oh, I can do this, and this is very well decided. I think most of our businesses in town, with maybe a couple of exceptions, would be put out of business with a $10,000 fine.
I think Section 3 of the resolution clearly states that we don't have the authority to regulate what the state does. And that's clearly stated in Section 3.
If they make it to the end.
I can't force anybody to read it.
I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying here. I don't agree. I agree that this has not been handled properly, but I do have concerns about the message this may send out to our citizens that that they can just start doing what they want to do, and I just have that concern that as Jenna said, will they read all the way down to Section 3? Will they realize that they're still responsible for all of these? And I would just have that concern as well.
I would just ask council members Huff and Blankenship if they were able to find any examples of the governor or the attorney general, for that matter, asking any local jurisdictions to enforce any of his dictates so far, because I wasn't successful in finding any of those. But granted, I spent about maybe a half hour on it, so I scoured as quickly as I could for a half hour, but didn't come up with anything.
Yeah, well, I did, and I spent a lot longer than a half hour. These are the guidelines for enforcement of Governor Inslee's COVID-19 proclamation. And in part, it reads that initial reports of an individual or business violating his proclamation. It's a business. So report is made through the coronavirus.wa.gov website regarding a business reporting and referring to the appropriate state agency for review and actions based on their regulatory authority. If it's an individual, back in the beginning, when Governor Inslee said, you know, hey, narc on your neighbor, if it was an individual, the direction is to contact your local law enforcement office, and they make that contact with those individuals. So if you're gathering with your family of 15 and your neighbor reports you, that comes to the local jurisdiction. And so when you say that there's no instructions here, it goes on and on. I don't want to read the whole thing. I would be happy to share this with you, Jared, and so you can look it over. But I think you're mistaken. Because you didn't find it doesn't mean that it wasn't there, because I have it here in hand.
My point more is that I didn't see any stories out there about jurisdictions doing that. In fact, most of what I was finding is the exact opposite of any local jurisdictions that were responding were not taking any sort of enforcement action. And according to the RCW, they're not allowed to take that enforcement action. What I was finding is that the majority of them were simply informing people of the governor's order.
I can agree with that, because that's the instructions that they're given, is to inform first. And if it continues, then they take it the next step. What I'm simply saying is I don't feel that we should waste city resources to enforce this overreach of government.
Can we ask our police department, if somebody does inform, not to follow the law and not to go out to that home or to that business? I mean, can we make that? That's not legal either, to tell our police department, you know, somebody has informed that they're having a wild party next door and there's lots of people there and they're all infecting each other. Are we saying that the police, are we giving direction to our police department saying don't go out and handle that?
Well, you're talking about a different, now you're talking about.
I didn't mean wild party, but I meant a group of people that exceeds the allowable limits. Do we want and I call, let's say, or somebody calls on me, I'm having my 4th of July party and I've got my whole family here, and somebody calls the police. Are we saying to our own police department, don't go out, don't check on that because we put together this resolution? What are we asking of our police department?
I think our police department is already doing that. Brenda, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Legally, what are we asking for our police department to do?
Brenda, what is the direction of the police department?
So right now, my understanding from Chief is that they are there to educate the community. And the way that he has instructed his officers to educate people, you know, comes from guidance that he's received, is my understanding. I don't tell the chief how to run his police department. And I let him run it. He comes to me if he has questions. I work with him on objectives and so on. But my understanding at the moment is that they are here to educate the public during the time when the COVID-19 emergency was, shall we say, before its peak, so to speak. All law enforcement, from my understanding, had been advised to only intervene or only respond to situations that were at an elevated level. You know, like they weren't pulling people over going 6 or 7 miles over the speed limit. They were waiting until they were 20 miles over the speed limit or something like that, so to speak. So I have not given Chief a directive like you must go and respond to calls, or you must not go and respond to calls. I have left that to his discretion as the chief and based on the guidance that he receives through his resources and his chain of command, so to speak. But my understanding is that they have been in an educational mode. If people had a question, they could answer it. If they saw something, they could say something. But from my understanding, we haven't had issues either. Like we had this discussion around whether or not to open the park play equipment concern. What if we have 25 people over there creating a thing, the police have to go in and intercede? And so we said, well, let's see how it goes, because we don't want to send the police into a crowd of people if we can help it. We want to make sure we're not taking that risk of them being exposed to something. And then as we saw, we didn't have abuse over there. People played in small groups and it has been fine so far. So I don't know if I'm answering the question. Does that help, Ben? Am I answering your question or?
No, and I understand your question, Joy. I can sympathize with what you're saying, but you can what if everything, and we can be here all night discussing this. You know, we've done our part. The city of McCleary, their residences and businesses have done their part. We've had 0 cases. We've had 0. And this all started probably based on models back in November of last year. We've had nothing. So again, I think the residents here in McCleary, they're pretty well educated people. They understand what social distancing is and following the CDC guidelines. So I don't foresee a problem, but we can't sit here all night and what if.
I understand what if, but I'm just telling you concerns that I do have. The 2 concerns I have is, how do our police handle it if sent into a situation? And also, if one of our businesses gets caught and has to pay that fine. Those are my 2 main concerns.
Well, if a business gets caught, that's going to be done by the state agency. That's not going to be done by our local law enforcement.
Well, I'm aware of that. Yes, L&I. And they're
What this
going to
resolution is saying is that we're not going to make that initial contact.
I guess my point remains that I don't see that we would anyways.
So what's the concern?
If we're not making the contact, what's the need for the resolution? If we're not going to be doing anything regardless, why would we need this in place? It would be more or it'd be, I guess in my opinion, better to put the guidance out to all the local businesses on the what the local jurisdiction is doing. And I think most of them are already aware of that at this point anyways, that we're here to educate, to inform you of where things are currently at, and then to, I guess in certain circumstances, maybe provide you with, what the next step would be legally for that business were things to escalate for them. Not that we're doing that, but, were the state L&I to come knocking, here's what you might face.
No, I think originally, Jaron, the issue was the lack of transparency between the business owners and what the municipality was going to do. I think this opens the door and it clearly states that we will not participate or abridge any rights that we feel these businesses are being taken advantage of. And that's all it simply says. There's nothing in here that says we're telling businesses that they can open up willy-nilly and have as many people in their restaurant or nail salon or whatever. We're not telling them that. We're simply being transparent in the city's position when it comes to COVID-19 and the guidelines that are set out by this governor.
So I do have one point to add, and thank you, Chief, for texting me. I'm not sure if he's having trouble with the microphone, but I was reminded that during phase 1, we were contacted almost daily about construction and that our police did respond to that on a daily basis. People reporting that there was construction going on and it wasn't supposed to be, and then we had to explain, yes, they can. And so we were responding during that time, just so you know, I wanted to add that in because I had forgotten about that. Thank you, Chief, for the reminder. And again, that went back to educating people on both sides of the equation, educating people on what was allowed because they were reporting something that they thought wasn't allowed. And we're like, yes, it is. They can get it to a certain stage and then they have to stop until the next phase or whatever. Are there questions or feedback? I know I've heard some questions here around, or feedback around, businesses being responsible to their licensor, for example, or to L&I with regard to their employees and employee safety and so on. I don't know if anyone has any other questions or feedback on this.
I think the fact that phase 2 means that our businesses can open, not all of them yet, but a lot of them can open. So we're headed the right direction. I'm not sure we need this resolution though. It's saying the things that, like Jaren said, it's saying the things that we're essentially already doing. And it doesn't really give anybody any more or less rights than they already have currently.
This is Bryson. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was curious if there was any businesses in town that happened to call in that would like to weigh in on the matter and give their input.
Todd, do we have any public attendance?
Yeah, we have a few call-ins, but nothing is being said, or nobody's raising their hand, and nobody's chatting or nothing. So
Okay.
I'll unmute them just to see if they say anything.
So we've opened the lines to invite public feedback or public comment on this resolution, if anybody would like to comment. Okay. Hearing none. Thank you, Todd, for doing that. If I may, a question to Chris on this. Chris, is there any liability or potential liability for the city for a business to come back to them if they do something or get caught in crosshairs or something with L&I or their licensor? Well, the city told me I could, or is there any concern there, or no?
You know, limited. I don't have any concern about it. I mean, if a business, there's no way, if that was a defense, you know, every business could eventually come in and say, well, hey, the city said I could do this. L&I wouldn't matter. L&I's jurisdiction would trump any authority the city would have to waive, you know, to waive requirements, and that's mentioned in the proclamations.
The resolution.
The resolution, sorry. Yeah. So I mean, I've never seen it, but a justifiable reliance argument, I think it'd be weak at best. Very weak at best.
Thank you.
I just have to say I'm not willing to vote for you know, a statement piece at this point.
Well, you know, just also just to keep in mind, City of Olympia, State of Washington, all voted to become sanctuary cities and state. If you read their resolutions, it's pretty similar to what you see in front of you. So, you know, I would really, really reconsider that, Jenna. I think that, you know, we owe it to the people here in McLaren. I don't care about what's going on in Olympia. I could care less. I care about what's going on here in McLaren and what's going on in Grays Harbor County. And my concern is that we are not being allowed the opportunity to recover because there is no guidance, there is no protocol that the state has put out for cities to move forward. And we are prime candidates to be in this recovery mode, and we simply can't. And I think that in itself is wrong.
And I think I would be more in favor of a statement piece that didn't involve the business aspect, because again, I completely agree with your views on how this has gone down at the governor's level. I mean, I personally and politically, I completely agree that I don't think that this has gone, you know, the way that I, you know, would have hoped to see happen. But I guess that this is more focused on business side, and if it was more focused just on a general statement of, you know, to the governor, I have seen that from some places that, you know, they haven't focused on the business side, but just saying, you know, we don't believe that this is a, you know, constitutional, through some type of a statement like that. I think that is something more that I could get behind. I just have some worries about businesses misconstruing what we're saying by saying that we're, you know, a sanctuary city for business, and that's my main worry.
Well, the constitutional issues are mentioned in the very beginning of this resolution, so they're both in there. The reason the businesses are included in this is because they're the ones that are actually going to be affected by this proclamation the governor put out. So that's the only reason the businesses are in there. I'm simply stating the fact that this governor has overreached his authority when it comes to your, mine, everybody else's constitutional rights. That's mentioned in there. The right to due process, that's mentioned in there. So I don't foresee this thing being a business-focused resolution. I think this is an all-around resolution that mentions just about everything that most people see wrong with this governor's proclamation.
Yes, the thing I'm struggling with, Ben, I am leaning towards what Jenna is saying. I have no problem with making a proclamation to the governor. I have no problem with making a statement on how we feel. Because I agree. But if I look at section 2, that's when I start to get nervous. City of McLaren shall not, and I know you're familiar with this, Ben, but I'm going to read it for the group. Shall not, in accordance with state and federal law, take any direct action against any business or individuals based solely on their actual or perceived business status. And the City of McLaren recognizes the state and county authorities directly license, permit, and regulate some businesses within the city, and nothing in this resolution is intended to abridge such authorities from overseeing applicable licenses. It's the saying that the city won't take any action is what, because that's saying that we've been given a law, people can be cited and fined, and we're saying that we're not going to take legal action. That's the part in all of this, that's the part that worries me, is saying, nope, we're not going to do anything, even though right now there's a state, I don't even know what it is. You would know better than me, a state law in place saying, you know, this is what we have to do. Chris, what is it? Is it a law or what is it?
Proclamation, I don't know.
No, I mean, what the governor has said, what he said to stay at home, is that a law?
I would argue it's a law.
Okay, so then
I would
we're going to not follow the law.
I disagree. I'll leave it at that. I think, and Chris knows that State law does not trump federal law. It's the opposite. Okay, so for people to think that Governor Inslee has all this authority to say, well, I'm going to shut down non-essential businesses because I can. He doesn't have that authority. Or what's to say next year, when school starts up, we start having a rash of gun violence in the county. And then the governor turns around, declares an emergency for life and safety, and tries to confiscate everybody's guns.
Now we're getting into the what ifs that you were talking about earlier.
It's an example, Joy, as far as this governor's proclamation and what it is that he's trying to do. He's not governing, he's ruling. And the issue at hand here is by the time these lawsuits hit the courts, it's months, maybe years down the road before they're even heard. So that's what he has on his side.
Yeah,
Chris, probably vouch for that.
and just so you're all aware, this is a resolution which is basically a policy statement of the city.
Thank you.
So, you know, your question, Joy, about the governor's proclamation, I mean, there's lots and lots of examples of cities, you know, Ben cited several, city of Seattle not charging marijuana crimes. I mean, that was a policy of the city. This is a policy, proposed policy. And so that's what this is. It's a proposed policy. So I will, but yeah, but I mean, it's not a law, it's a policy. It's not an ordinance, it's a resolution.
Well, I didn't mean this. I meant what the governor, what I was asking is when the governor said that he had to close down businesses and when he said, you know, staying at home, is that law or is that his policy?
That's law. That was a law that if a client had contacted me and said, Chris, I'm going to stay open, I would have said you are subjecting yourself to massive potential penalties. And the problem, we've seen it. I mean, we saw the state. I mean, you've seen our attorney general suing those gyms. Those are civil cases. Are people being thrown in prison? No, but I mean, of course, yeah, they're monetary consequences,
right?
Which are significant. And you know, I mean, when the construction phase opened up, L&I was going around and going to job sites, and if somebody was violating the rules as it relates to COVID, they were getting cited for a level 3 violation, which is a deadly violation. Now, do I think it's going to stick to that? I don't, but that's what they're citing. So this is a policy position that Council Member Blankenship's putting forward. It's not a law; it's a position statement of the city.
Crickets.
Brenda, this is Bryce. When we spoke on Friday, if I recall correctly, there was a city up north that wrote for an exemption, correct? They were in a similar situation like McCleary, and they were denied. Not familiar?
No, I know that I had reached out to the governor's office to ask if we could apply as a city rather than waiting for the county. And the response I got from the governor's office was that there was no process for that.
Okay.
I have emailed back to the governor's office asking them formally to create a process by which McCleary can apply for a variance when phase 3 is available. And there is a call this Friday at 11 for elected officials from this area and Governor Inslee, and that question will be posed to him during that call.
Okay.
Can I attend, Brenda?
Sure. It's at 11 if you want to. I think it's okay, right, Chris, if he comes down and listens in on that call here at City Hall with me? Is that all right? Not a quorum, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, you're more than welcome to, Ben.
You said, what day was that?
It's this coming Friday at 11 a.m.
Okay.
I mean, I would also add, if you need council support on any further letters to the governor's office about going into phase 3 or phase 4 at this point, I don't want to speak for the rest of the council, but I would be perfectly willing to put my name to that.
Thank you.
As would I.
Thank you.
so Brenda, I think we need to maybe, are you gonna call the motion on this if you're ready, or?
Yeah, if there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion. And the resolution number would be 731.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 731.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? And Chris, would this be a roll call vote since we're on WebEx?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Wendy, can we hear you yet? And if not, I'll do it. Okay, I can't hear her, so I'll go ahead. The motion is to adopt resolution 731. There's a second. Councilmember Amsbury,
Nay.
Councilmember Huff,
Yes.
Councilmember Heller,
Nay.
Councilmember Blankenship,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson.
Nay.
Okay, so the nays have it and the resolution is not adopted. All right. Any other feedback, comment from council members on anything?
This is Bryson again. Backtracking to the Impala that we were going to surplus. I don't know, Todd, you might know more being on the fire department. If they're wanting a smaller car for rapid response, is that something that fire could use rather than selling it out, or is it just something that we need to get rid of?
It is not something the fire department is interested in using.
Okay.
You've already looked into that, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's tough to fit everybody into an Impala. I can barely fit into it, so.
Any other council comments?
I would.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I would just add that in a discussion that's going to happen tomorrow, the county commissioners are going to be discussing the CARES Act funds. Since the county gets $4 million, there will be some discussion tomorrow on at about 10:30 on potential ideas and things for how the county is looking to use those CARES Act funds. So that's something that, I just wanted to let you guys know of, and that there has been no phase 3 guidance proposed yet from Department of Health or anyone. The commissioners did reach out and ask for that information so that we could be prepared. The commissioners made a statement that they want to look at that as soon as possible. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that as a council, that discussion did happen this week. So
Thank you. Any other council comments? So mayor comments. I have one more thing to share with council, and we talked about this at the last meeting, that we were looking into potentially refinancing the wastewater treatment center loan. We actually have 3 or 4 different loans out there. And so Todd and Wendy have been reaching out to some banks. And right now we have information from Banner Bank, and we have information from Umpqua Bank. Umpqua Bank is our current banker. That's who we utilize for city accounts and everything at this time. So currently, and Todd, jump in if I get off mark here, but we have, I believe, 3 or 4 different loans. They vary on percentage rates from like 3.25 up to 5%. And right now, Umpqua Bank and Banner Bank, I mean, the rates are basically what the rates are, can do a refi on those loans at a 2.6% interest rate, which would be a savings for the city over. The options that we've looked at include a 10, a 15, a 20, and a 25-year loan, because right now the biggest loan that we have, which is a little over $2 million, is scheduled to sunset in 2045. But looking at what's been sent over, a 15-year loan would save us money in cash flow each year, and it would reduce our commitment from 25 more years down to 15 years. And so I have information that I could forward to council. I don't know if we could put it up on the screen or not, Todd. I don't know if you have it there in front of you. But basically, both banks were coming in at the same rate, that 2.6%. And the savings, Todd and Wendy, if you can help me here, I think the savings on, if we did the 15-year loan at the 2.6%, we would be saving approximately $10,000 to $13,000 a year in the payments that we make. And like I said, reducing the life of that loan from 25 years down to 15. So, Chris, I'm not positive what we have to have from council. Like if he wants to refinance a loan, does council need to approve that, or what process would we have to go through?
You know, I think it'd be something, obviously the finance committee's take a look at it. They make a proposal to council. I think the safe bet would be just to have council approval to do it.
Okay. So our next meeting is not scheduled until June, I think it's like June 11th or something. Look here. June 10th. I don't know if we want to wait 2 more weeks. I'm not sure how this works. Like, should we call a meeting if we get a proposal together, or what do you think, Todd or Wendy or Chris? Like, what do you think of the timing?
I think if you get, just my personal experience, if you get a bank to approve it, I'm sure you could get a closing date out, which would, I can't imagine they do it before, 13 days.
Okay, so if we can get them to give us a hard proposal and so on, we could bring that to the finance committee on the 10th and then ultimately to the council.
I think so.
Okay. So I guess what I would ask council tonight is, would you like us to proceed?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there
Okay.
any, is
We
there
just
any,
want to make sure we weren't barking up a wrong tree. I felt that was council's wishes, but we don't want to make any assumptions. So,
is there
okay,
any
we will get,
specific terms that we want to look at? Like a 15, 20, 25? I mean, are we trying to go for the lowest payment type deal? Are we looking for something that's similar payment with lower years? I mean, what,
It sounds as if we can get lower payments and lower years, because Brenda said we'd save that money. Wasn't there also a 10-year offer as well?
yeah,
we looked at a 10-year offer, but the payments would actually be more, significantly more.
Okay.
And I don't think we want to do that, because that we'd be passing that along to the ratepayers.
No,
So
I didn't know if that penciled out, but with the 15-year loan, it would be less out annually, plus we would have it paid off, everything paid off in 15 years.
sooner, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see some potential savings, because I do know that that's one of the big things is our rates that we have for our sewer and water systems are high. So
well, I just want to point out too that if we do this doesn't necessarily mean our rates will go down, because our rates are based off of our capital improvements and what we need to do in the future, not and what improvements have been done. That's what they're based off of. It's not just because we finance it, we're not going to automatically just go out and lower rates, or we shouldn't automatically go out and lower rates. 'Cause we have, I mean, sewer has over $10 million in capital improvements to do. So does water has a little over 5 million capital improvements to do. So you're basically going to be, if you lower rates, you'll end up taking away money for the future for doing those projects also.
And I guess that was kind of leading into some of my grant questions that I've had recently and project questions, is making sure that we are in a position to apply when things are available for those type of grants, because that's one of my big priorities is water and sewer rates, and trying to find some way that we can make those more affordable. You know, we may not see it now, but you know, in the future, if there's some way for us to get some other funding out there, that's a big thing for the taxpayers.
And by cutting off 10 years of this loan, it does save the ratepayers overall, you know, clearly. So it, like Todd is saying, they may not see a reduction in the amount they pay right now from month to month, but in the long haul and in the big picture, it's going to save the ratepayers if we can lob off that much money from what we're paying back to the bank.
Right.
So.
We might not have to be as aggressive as a 3% increase every year. We might be able to cut that down of an increase of maybe 1% or lower, whatever we come up with. So.
Yeah.
Plus, it would give us more cash in the bank for all those infrastructure repairs that we have to do, and help us not to pass that on to the ratepayers.
Yep.
And then just for council knowledge, I am working on, with the team here, I'm working on the city's mitigation plan for reopening. I'm working with AWC, the county public health leaders, and then of course the team here. So we're getting that together, and I'll hopefully have something for you for the next meeting to review. And that's just to ensure as we move forward, because if cities do get a process by which we can apply for a variance, we would have to have a mitigation plan in place anyway, as Councilman Blankenship had shared earlier. So we're getting that together, and we are continuing to work. John Taylor's been working with us on the CEMP, so work has not stopped. I just want to give you an update that we are still moving forward on those things and working on that. I think that was the notes that I had from last time to make sure that we were staying on track with everything. So, all right. Well, any other questions or comments, or we'd entertain a motion to adjourn?
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you June 10th. We'll have finance at 5:30 and then council meeting at 6:30.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Have a good night.
Thank you.